Alright, so I thought I'd do a quick little video. Today marks our official exit from Iraq as far as combat troops are concerned. In all reality, 50,000 troops are staying behind as sort of a supportive / training role for the Iraqi forces. Reality is that some of their description actually leaves it open to whether or not they are going to continue to kind of fight. But needless to say, we've definitely removed a large presence from Iraq today. And while it's great to be hailed, reality is we still have 50,000 men and women that are over there in Iraq. And it's important to remember how we got there. And a lot of people like to kind of change the rationale of why we went to war in Iraq. And I'd like to point out that Saddam was an evil man, absolutely, who had committed a bunch of atrocious crimes against humanity. But that was not what we went to war for. We went to war because we were told he had weapons of mass destruction and that he had ties to Al-Qaeda, all of things that ended up being, for the most part, false. He had ties to Al-Qaeda and that, of course he associated with people, but there was never any real proof that he was directly funding Al-Qaeda or, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And as far as the weapons of mass destruction were concerned, there weren't any. It's, we spent kind of a couple of years looking for weapons of mass destruction, and there was nothing. So the reality is that if we knew now what we knew then, if the facts had been presented to us, would Congress and the president and this country have decided that going to war in Iraq in such a unstable region was a good idea because there was a bad man in charge of the country? Then the answer is no. We obviously wouldn't have gone to Iraq. We wouldn't have sacrificed thousands of our troops, hundreds of thousands of Iraqi civilians, a few $100 billion. We wouldn't have done it. It just wasn't there. The cost-benefit analysis was only there when we were told that Iraq was, an imminent threat to us, and they had weapons of mass destruction, and there was also a revenge, a retaliation component of, hey, these guys are associated with the crazy Al-Qaeda hijackers who hit us in 9/11, and we were like, all right, go get them, George, and as a country, not as individuals. And it just wasn't true. So I laud us pulling combat troops out of Iraq. I think it's fantastic. But let's realize that we've still done an immense amount of damage to that country. I'm not sure Iraqis are really all that much better off without Saddam. He was a horrible dictator. He did horrible things. But, when you factor in the number of lives that us fighting a war over there has cost the Iraqi people, I'm not sure it would have been better for the country if, because we went there. I think maybe it might have helped with people who were, allied against Saddam, people who were against him politically, religiously, etc. Definitely gave them more of an opportunity, but I don't think we've increased the country's stability or their welfare or, brought any material kind of change. But just thought I'd throw that out there. The other political thing that was in the news today was stem cell research being held up by I think it was a federal appeals court. Basically, he's ruling that stem cell research is in violation of federal law that prohibits the donation or the use of federal tax dollars for research that includes the destruction of an embryo. And the fact that we have to have this conversation, I put it on Facebook earlier. I said, if you want to talk about fundamentalism, we go on about Islamic fundamentalism, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Saying that we should not do stem cell research because it's the destruction of a life is probably fundamentalism on the worst order. It's something that's not based in science. If you look at all of the basic ingredients that we, presume, as the basis for a mammal to be alive, a heartbeat, brain activity, consumption of oxygen, and the production of carbon dioxide. It's crazy. It's a little bit nuts, and I use terminology that probably offends a shitload of people, but it's like saying your little frozen sea monkey is alive. I mean, it's really just sperm that has fertilized an egg. There's no life. There's no personality. There's great potential for life there. But in all honesty, I would argue that there's no more potential for life there than there is in a ovum and a single tiny little sperm. There's enormous potential there after it's been incubated and grown for 6.5, 9 months. But to say that destruction of an embryo is somehow killing a human, as we, I think, generally define a human, it's a bit insane, especially when the destruction of those embryos would actually help research to help save lives of people who are actually living and breathing and have blood pressures and consume oxygen and have families, mothers, daughters, husbands, grandparents, all these people who could benefit from stem cell research. And we're taking what is largely a religious objection. I would hazard a guess and say 75 to 90% of people who object to stem cell research because it's the destruction of an embryo would also classify themselves as evangelical Christians, Baptist, or other religious conservatives. This is a religious objection. Life begins at conception to them and for some non-religious people. But it's crazy. It's not to even mention the separation of church and state. But anyways, I'm in law school now. Maybe I'll find some crazy legal loophole and solve the whole case. But yeah. Anyways, peace out.